Right, so now the head's on, rocker box is on, etc. Push rod's in, turn the engine over, everything seems fine. So we're going to now carry on rebuilding the, refitting the timing case. A few things to note. I've just put some spark plugs in loosely, simply to stop things dropping down into the combustion chambers. But they're only in a couple of threads, so I can take them out again if I need to, because obviously it makes turning the engine over a bit harder. Right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to take off the nuts on the crankshaft pinions, because I want to put some thread lock on them and then do them back up again. I didn't put thread lock on before because I thought we'd probably have to pull them off and turn them round to adjust the timing, but then of course we found out that the timing's pretty spot on. The valve timing is pretty much spot on already, so I didn't need to adjust them, but that's why they weren't Loctited before. So we'll be torquing those up, and then we'll be fitting the rotor, and then fitting the stator that makes up the alternator, and then putting the timing cover on. And there are a couple of jobs which I shall refer to later, which I think sort of sum up the state of the sort of British motorcycle engineering at the time, which wasn't good. Anyway, I was going to say something. Oh yes. Now, if you remember, when I took these apart, I found that there was a lot of extra punch marks. Like there's a double punch mark on this one, and there's a treble punch mark on this one, and then corresponding punch marks on the intermediate pinion. What I'm thinking now about those is that at some point someone took the engine apart and they didn't know about the existing timing marks. And so wherever the engine was at the time when they took it apart, then they put punch marks in, and and that, so they could put them back in the same place. That's all I can think of, because they don't. I thought maybe the timing had already been adjusted and they'd re-punched them, where the new timing was, but no. That's all I can think of, is that for some reason when they took it apart, I thought, oh, I better mark it so I can remember where it goes back, and so re-punched everything. Who knows? Right, let's get on, and we'll undo these pinions on the exhaust camshaft and inlet camshaft. They're punched with an L, which tells us that they are left-hand thread. So we'll be taking them off and putting some thread lock on, then tying them back up. I'll tell you the torque in a minute. I know it's a very high torque on them. Right, so I'm going to start by removing the camshaft pinion nuts. It's a left-hand thread, and I've used my old crankshaft pinion between the teeth to lock the engine. Let's say you haven't got that, it's difficult to lock the engine. You could put something on the crankshaft at the other end, as a spanner which jams onto the bench, but it is difficult. So it could be that you leave the engine, tighten these up until the primer is on, when you can lock the engine a bit more easily. In my case though, I can use that, so I can do it now. Check this. It's always weird with a left-hand thread. You have to really think about it because it's so, against the grain. Right, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Not even my Zapparooni's going to do that one. I must have done those up tight. Oh, there it's going. Blimey. That's never failed to do them before. I must have done them up tighter than I thought. Okay, now I've undone them. I'm going to put some thread lock on, because you don't want these coming undone, of course, when the engine's running. Okay, and then putting them back on, thinking about which way to turn them, making sure the flat side goes to the pinion. Right, okay, so then I'm going to torque these up, and they are a high torque, they're 75 foot-pounds. It's a massive torque, it's a 1 1/8 spanner socket. And what you do need to have is a torque wrench that will work with the left-hand thread. What I didn't realise was some of the cheaper ones, apparently they'll only work, you know, with normal right-hand thread. So you do need, if you're going to buy a torque wrench and you're going to be doing these engines, you do need to, you do need to get a torque wrench that works with a, you see, I'm doing it the wrong way, that's fine. See, automatically, I wasn't thinking, automatically I was turning it the wrong way. I need to lock that in the other, there we go. Because I'm turning it this way, I need to use the pinion on the inlet cam, now that I'm tightening it up rather than undoing it. Okay, we've got a 75 foot-pounds, which is a lot, so I'm not expecting it to go easily. Not at all easily. There we go. Yeah, you leave the pinion, because I'm turning it. Yeah, I'm turning this the same way. I'm going to push this on because they're very thin nuts, and you can easily slip off. When you're pushing, trying to get 75 foot-pounds of pressure on, you can do yourself or the bench or the engine. There we go. A lot of damage. Yeah. Whew. Hurrah for the engine pin, crankshaft pinion, which is, as I thought, now wedged. So I'll get that. I'll just turn the engine over on the spanner. That will come out, and then we'll start fitting the rotor and the stator that goes around it. I'll just there we go. Just turn the engine a bit, and out comes that. And those two are on. That's number one. Next we go onto the rotor. Right, we might as well have a look at the rotor now. Leave the camera running. Okay, so rotor. So the rotor is held on. There's a groove there. You can't see it's on the other side for the woodruff key. So totally traditional sort of semicircular half moon, whatever you call it, woodruff key, which is going to go in that groove. And then we've got the rotor, and that is going to slide on. It's got a keyway there, and that is going to slide on the shaft, and we're sorted. Now, as I've talked about it many times before, this is my first annoyance that sums up the motorcycle industry of the time. So this is, because it never ceases to amaze me, this, even though I've said many times. So this is the standard Triumph rotor, which is made for twins. It's got a single timing mark cast into it. There's only a single timing mark, but because it's a twin engine, it fires 360 degrees out. So that means there's only one timing mark which actually does both cylinders, because one fires there, another one fires 360 degrees later. So there's one timing mark, okay, cast. So on a normal Triumph engine, that's the way you put the rotor on. But on a Trident, it's a triple engine, you put the rotor on backwards with all the casting and all that facing inwards, because on the back is scratched the timing marks for a Trident. and that's what really annoys me. Instead of making a new rotor with the timing marks cast into it, no, they use a twin rotor, turn it round and scratch the marks on the back. You know, it kind of just sums up, I'm not going to say, it just sums up the motorcycle industry of the time to me. Right, there are 6 timing marks. We've only got 3 cylinders. The reason is, and hopefully you'll be able to see this fairly clearly, I'll just look at the camera and see if it's picking it up. See if I can get, you've got an A, and it says A and B. So there are 3 marks, and someone scratched someone scratched C on it. I don't know. Anyway, never mind. So A, you've got 3 A marks and 3 B marks. And the reason for that is that on very early Tridents, the keyway for this pinion was in a different place on the crankshaft. And then quite early on, I couldn't tell you when, they moved the keyway. Why they moved the keyway, I don't know, but there's obviously a reason, and they did. So the keyway was in a different position. So on very early engines, I think you use the A marks. There's 3 marks because there's 3 cylinders. And you can use a stroke to time each cylinder on your contact breakers, on your points. And the B marks, there's 3 of them, because that's for the later crankshaft with the keyway, because this is turned, you know, depending on which crankshaft it is. Okay, so that's why there's 6 marks. For us these days, we generally only use 1 timing mark because we have electronic ignition, which will be fitted later. And on electronic ignition, you only need to time 1 cylinder, and then you know the other 2 are spot on because they can't be moved. If you've got points, contact breakers, you have to use all 3 because you have to adjust each one separately. But we'll only actually be, out of these 6, we'll only be using 1, which is probably that one that says B on it. But to be honest, we'll find out when we do the engine. Okay, but that's why there's 6 marks. But I'm sorry, but it just, you know, never ceases to amaze me. They cast all this, and then instead of making a new one, you know, top of the range, the Trident, oh yes, the flagship model, yeah, we'll just turn the rotor over and scratch some marks on the back, and that'll be fine. Right, rant over. I'm going to turn the engine over a bit so that the keyway is right at the very top. You can't see that, just makes life easier. Remember where I put the Woodruff key, and then I'm going to just slot that in. Get a little hammer. Probably not enough, and just tap the Woodruff key, hopefully, until it's in. I think I'm getting there. Try not to turn the engine, damage it, but I do need it fully home. And then we slide the rotor on. At least I'm not sure. I don't think that. No, I'm not happy with that. I haven't got. I don't know. I've got that down fully. We'll see. We'll see if the rotor goes on, but I don't think it will. Make sure the scratch marks are on the outside. Line up the keyway with the key. It's not going on, and now I've got to get it off. It's not going on because I didn't. I haven't. See what I'm jammed now, aren't I? Because I didn't spend time, because I'm on the camera and all that. I didn't spend time seating that Woodruff key properly. So I'm going to get the tyre levers, take that off, seat the key properly, and then put the rotor back on in a minute. Okay, there we go. Just took a bit of time just to seat that Woodruff key properly, and the rotors slid straight on. So now we're going to do up the rotor retaining nut on the crankshaft. So I've put some thread lock on it, because obviously again we don't want to be coming undone. And it's got a lock tab as well. It's got a little tab, and that goes in, fits in the keyway. Right hand thread, so I've put my locking pinion back in. Again, so much easier with that. If you haven't got that a lot harder. As I say, probably best to leave it in that case until the primary chain case is in, then you can lock the primary chain and then do these nuts up then. This again is a very tight nut. This is 50 foot-pounds, but of course is a right hand thread, so that's why I've got the pinion over on that side. It naturally digs itself in. I'm probably going to have to cover the camera, sorry, I'll try not to. And we're going to just do this one up to 50 foot-pounds. There it goes. Very good. I just mentioned I'm very proud of this torque wrench. This is the one tool that I got from my dad. So it's always nice to have something passed on from your dad, some sort of heirloom. It's the only tool I've got. Oh, and what I'm doing now is sort of automatically, without thinking about it, I'm now slackening off the torque wrench because there's a spring inside it, and if you leave it wound up, then that spring will compress, and then you'll get a false. The torque wrench won't work at the right setting. To be honest, this is that old. It's probably not that accurate, but hey, I love it, and so I'm going to carry on using it. Right. Okay. So that's in. I need to get my pinion out, which of course is now dug in. So I'll just turn the engine backwards, and then it comes. And then we need to bend this locking tab back over. We've got there is no locking tab on the camshaft pinions, but there is on the rotor nut. So we put the Loctite on, but we're going to bend that back over. I think probably this isn't going to work now, is it? Probably one of the easiest ways is, if you can, it's not going to work now, is get a pair of molds on it. What do you call them in America? There we go. And you just catch the edge on the molds, and it'll bend over. Okay, so that's done, and then we'll do another side as well. I'm going to do like the opposite side of it. I don't know if I can. No. Come on. You see, it worked too well the first time, and I just don't want to do it this time at all. Come on, baby. I've probably got the. Maybe if I turn these around, I think that's probably better. That's less words. Come on, we're on camera. There we go. You don't need to do that, but just to be on the safe side. There we go. Let's double tab wash it up. Rotor's on. Great. So the next thing is we're going to fit the stator. Now the problem with the stator is that when you fit it, and this is my second rant about British motorcycle mechanics of the time, or motorcycle engineering, whatever you want to call it, is that when you fit the stator, this is the stator, oops, fit the stator, it goes round the rotor, and you need a 10th thou gap all the way round. And what can happen is you put it on and you've got like a 15th thou gap at the top and a 5th thou gap at the bottom. You have to have an even gap all the way round. But there is no adjustment available on the rotor. Okay, you cannot adjust it. But you need to adjust it to get it even. So the only way of adjusting this is you've got these stator mounting studs. And believe it or not, what you have to do is you have to gently bend the studs to move the stator very slightly to to get an even gap. And I'm sorry, But you know, how do you adjust the gap? Well, what you do is you get a hammer, boof, and you gently tap the studs without damaging the crankcase that the stud is screwed into. And just gently tap it. You'll be okay. You know, don't worry about the crankcase or putting a crack in it. And you know, crikey. Okay, so I've spent a fair amount of time trying to get this central, and I think it is now. And we've got a 10th thou gap around the edge. So I've got the studs in. We have very gently eased the studs with our mallet, and I haven't done that on camera because it's too terrifying. But we have gently eased the studs to make sure we've got a 10th thou gap all the way around. Then we've got these spacer washers. They're a bit thicker than the washers that go on the outside. So they're spacers that go on the studs. And then we're going to try and introduce the alternator wire up through the gland here. And this may or may not work. The trouble is the bullets, and they're side by side, they won't go up, I don't think, together. But then, as I think I've said before, the problem is this wire, excuse me, this wire gets very, oh bloody hell, early in the morning, there we go. This wire gets very brittle because it gets very hot and it runs in oil. Well, this bit, you know, isn't in oil, but it gets very hot, and what happens is these wires, they get brittle and then they just fracture. Certainly all the outer you know, the electrical plastic insulation breaks off. So I really don't want to be moving these around more than I have to rather. But I'm pretty sure I can't get both bullets up at the same time. No. So I'm going to have to jiggle them about a bit. So I'm going to bend that one down so the bullets aren't side by side, and hopefully we'll get that up. Yeah, that's come out. So you can see that. That goes up through the gland and comes out the back of the timing case. And then with a rubber boot here, and that goes over the end of the gland. Sort of first defense of oil leak. And then there's another seal that goes in the top of the timing case here where the wire comes out, which we'll put on later on. Okay, so I'm going to put that rubber boot on. There we go, up over the gland. Feed the rest of the wire up, and then put the stator back on. Always a bit of a jiggle. There we go. Nearly there. There we go. Until it sits fully home against the spacers at the back. We've got a 10th thou feeler gauge, and there we are. A little bit tight there still, but I think we're okay. Yeah. We've got a 10th thou gap all the way around. Yeah. Yeah. So that's fine. Yeah. Okay. Otherwise, I think it will burn the stator out if you don't, if that gap isn't there. And so then we've got the 3 washers that go on the outside of the stator. They're thinner than the spacers that go on the inside. And you can tell we're right because the stator and the rotor are basically in line. I'll put the rotor studs on, the stator. And these have got an 8 pound torque, so I shall be doing them up to 8 if I can. Let's have a look. We'll get the Mega Blaster out. I've got my 7/16 to hand. No, I haven't. Do them up. Not going to over tighten them. Okay, and I'll get the torque wrench on them, and then that will be the timing case. I think basically finished, or at least the inner timing case. Then we'll have to put the electronic ignition unit in the outer timing case after that's on. But that is, I'll just check this jack again. So it hasn't closed up. Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, a bit tight. Yeah, we've still got 10. We've got 10 all the way around. Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, we've got the well seal on both mating surfaces. Got the new gasket. We've got the dowels in place. I think there's just 2 locating dowels on the top there. So we'll pop the gasket on over the dowels and hopefully around the bottom. There we go, better get it on the bottom first. Alright, okay. There we go. And then there is a hole here, down, which corresponds with the hole here, which corresponds, oh dear, dear, with a hole up in here somewhere. Where's it gone? Oh, there you are. And that's the wire that goes through for the ignition, all the points. Okay, which is why some people think, well, how come the wire goes through there and it doesn't, oil doesn't come out? It's because it doesn't actually go into the timing case. It it sort of goes on the side of the timing case, and that's why it doesn't leak. I'm saying oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, because of course I've just realised I've got ahead of myself, and I haven't fitted the oil seal there that goes onto the end of the exhaust camshaft, which is a bugger because I've already put all the well seal on. Right, there we go. So I've just tapped the oil seal in. It just literally just tapped it in. Don't forget, oil seals always fitted with the open side to the oil, right? So it's always easy to remember. And then I've put well seal back on the casing, not forgetting this bit, which is goes around where that cable goes through for the points, etc. Then I should have my special tool. Right, so here's a special tool, simple one, and it screws into the end of the exhaust cam, and it's a little cone-shaped spigot, and all that does is so that when I put this casing on, it allows this oil seal to slide down the shaft and seat itself, because what can happen is you can catch the lip of the seal on the exhaust camshaft end and it damages it. So that just stops it, allows it to slide on. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually put a bit of assembly lube on the there, which sounds a bit weird, but I don't want the seal to be running dry because that can damage it as well. So I'm just putting a bit of lube around the end of the exhaust camshaft. There we go. Pick this up and it should fit on the dowels. Check I haven't forgot anything else. Yeah. There we go. I'll trim this gasket down later, get a nice professional finish, but there we go. We've had the outer cases polished. Woohoo! So look at that. I don't know if it's catching how well that's catching the light, but yeah. So obviously it's all got gunge on it now from well seal and one thing and another half, but we'll polish it back up again when when everything's finished. Okay, then we've got the casing screws. We've got 3 long screws and all the others are short. So the 3 long ones go in the 3, go in the bottom. Okay, there we go. And then the others all go in. I'll see all the others. And they're all the same length, so I know that they're all okay. Get the super blaster, gently do them up. Be careful with that one. Don't want to catch, I'll do that one up by hand because I don't want to catch the casing with it, and I'll probably do the same with this one. No, that one's okay. I don't want to catch the casing with the socket. Oops. There, I've done them all up just sort of a bit tight, and then when I find my, oh dear, when I find this, there it is, and always finish them off by hand so I know how tight they're getting. Don't use the zapper to tighten things up because you've no idea how tight they are. Let's go around. That's about it. My plain Allen key out. Is that the right one? Yeah. It's pretty tight anyway, those, but yeah, great. There we go. Timing case on. Oh, obviously just got to remove the fitting tool from that oil seal. Just check, yeah, it's all seated nicely on the end of the camshafts or spigot. There we go, because in here this will remain dry in here because that's where all the points, or in our case electronic ignition, is going. So that's dry, and the cable then goes out through the housing up to the coils. We've got the oil seals of stock oil coming out there, and then later on we'll put this cover plate on when we've timed the engine up. That's good because we've now got all the top end done, all the cylinder head, etc. Lovely, and now, what was that? When we were for a second, engine's falling apart. It's just, I don't know if you can see that, it's just the nut off the end of the rocker shaft. Okay, but yeah, so I'm feeling, you know, we're getting somewhere. I'm very pleased so far. Good, good. So next job will be the gearbox. I will leave that there for now. Great stuff.